Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
Hi there, my name is TD Zummack. I'm the author of two books. The one I'm going to be reading from today is my second book. It's a Western called The Brand of Brotherhood. It's a little bit of my homage to Louis L'Amour. I'm just going to start right with chapter one and get you started at the beginning. The 1860s had not been good to the Warner family. William Warner had gone off to fight for the Union during the Civil War. He had left behind a wife and two young sons, one 4 and one 2, as well as a prosperous little grocery business in Boston. Once the war had ended, he had found himself somewhat disenchanted with the country and the government as an institution in general. He did what a great number of citizens were doing. He packed up his family and headed west in 1865 for the wide open space of the western frontier. He was a bit of a gentleman, a dandy, some of the rougher men had called him, and they had very little experience to employ towards survival in the harsh West. It had been a struggle every step of the way. The West proved wilder than the stories he had heard, but he wasn't a quitter, and slowly he gathered the skills needed for him and his family to build a life. They settled in a town called Ash Hollow in the Nebraska Territory and proceeded to try to farm to build their legacy. It wasn't the prosperous start he had hoped for. Drought had plagued the land for the last 2 seasons. The ground had been baked hard by hours of hot sunshine, and what water there was had been dammed up and diverted to the land of the large cattle ranchers in the area. Outlaws roamed free, thieving and killing with little regard for what law enforcement there was, and Indian war parties crisscrossed the area frequently. During this time, William had learned how to shoot and how to ride, as well as how to read, sign, and track a little. As his boys grew, by then Colt was 10 and Brick was 8, he tried to pass on every new skill he learned to them. Both had learned quickly. His wife, Margaret, had been a rock through it all, never once complaining, doing her best to make the most of a bad situation and be the good wife and mother she was expected to be. He loved her dearly for it. While other women were parked in his sitting room drinking tea and wasting the day away, his Margaret was out there working the field with him every day. Her fair complexion had become darkened by endless days in the sun, her long, curly red hair looking like a tongue of flame extending off a lighted match. She had lost weight. They all had, but she still kept her girlish figure. She'd been a beautiful woman back home, the toast of Boston, with countless suitors, and even now, under these harshest of conditions, she remained stunning. They were truly partners, and William thanked the Lord every day for bringing her into his life. They struggled together as a family to build the life they wanted, even as the drought wore on for another season and the lawlessness became worse. All of them being together was what mattered. William continued to try to farm and loved his wife and children that much harder every day. He was doing this for them, trying to give them a future. But there were obstacles at every turn. What little livestock they'd had died under the harsh conditions, and with no crops to harvest, they were forced to butcher their last cow in order to eat over the winter. No crops meant no money, and no livestock meant nothing to sell. They were broke. He had taken a loan from the bank the previous spring and now had no way to pay it back. They were threatening to take his farm. Life was beating him down at every turn, and then came the final blow, the last obstacle, one he could not overcome, could not live with. In the spring of 1869, his beloved Margaret, mother to his children and love of his life, became ill from cholera and passed away. It was the 13th of March, the darkest day of William's life. Colt remembered the day too. He was 12 and Brick was 10. He remembered how hard it was to put the shovel into the frozen ground to dig his mother's grave. He remembered the awful sound of the cold steel hitting the frigid soil. They had only been able to chip away a shallow plot and were then forced to pile rocks on top to cover the body and protect it from animals. It had been hard work, made even more painstaking by doing it while his eyes were filled with tears. Colt and Brick watched their father's struggles and helped out where they could, but it was never enough. They were witness to his slow descent from a once proud and confident man to someone who had been drummed into submission by relentless strife and turmoil. His mother had been the rock of the family, always there to prop up his dad and never allowing her boys to give up hope. When she became ill, he watched his father sink even faster, spending most nights looking for hope at the bottom of a bottle. And when she passed, Colt watched the light in his father's eyes dim and his posture decline. He looked like he was a balloon and someone had let out the air. Colt was worried what was going to happen to them. Who would look after the family? He took the role upon himself. He would look after Brick during the day, make the meals, teach him to read the way his mother had taught him, and then at night he would take care of his father and make sure he made it to bed safely. His father still wore a gun belt, although Colt didn't know why, since he never used a gun anymore. Colt took the gun out each night and carefully cleaned it before he went to bed. After all, you never knew when it might be needed. He was growing up fast, but then most boys did in the West. It was a necessity if you wanted to survive. Life was tough and getting tougher. It was another drought filled summer, working the field all day under the glare of the hot sun, trying to push the plow through the hard ground, trying to plant seeds in soil with the composition of 3-day old oatmeal, and then praying for just a little bit of rain, any moisture at all, was enough to break a man's spirit and his body. The three of them worked the farm the best they could all season, but there were no animals left to put to work, and what little crop did grow wasn't enough to even try and sell. A herd of bison roamed lazily past the farm one day, and William managed to hunt a little one. He showed the boys how to butcher the animal, and they were able to eat some that night, make jerky with most of it, and still have some left for a few meals later on. They weren't living high on the hog, but they were living. Then came the second day that Colt would never forget. It was late in August when his father burst through the door of the cabin and announced that the three of them were moving. Pack your bags, lads. We are heading west. Colt couldn't believe what he had heard. What? Where are we going, Pa? Sacramento, Colt, my boy. Where's that? It's in California, right next to the ocean. What's California? Asked Brick, wide eyed at the news. California is a place where it's warm all the time. No more harsh winter winds and waist deep snow for us. It's booming, boys. They're finding gold out there. There's ships to work on. There's rich ranch land. There's an honest job for any man that wants one. William was twitching with so much excitement that Colt thought he was going to start dancing. How are we going to get there, Pa? The Union Pacific has finished their railroad. We're going to catch a train and it'll take us right into Sacramento. We get to ride a train? Screamed Brick. We sure do, son. William picked him up and twirled him around in the air. Things are going to get better now, boys. They surely will. Colt spoke up. But we ain't got no money, Pa. How are we going to ride the train? You leave that to your old dad, son. I'll get us on that train. It was such exciting news that Colt wanted to believe it was true. He hadn't seen his father this lively in a long time. The light had come back in his eyes, and he almost looked a little taller. California sounded good. He had been young when his family left Boston, and he could barely remember the ocean. No more winter sounded great as well. In fact, it all sounded too good to be true. But for one night, Colt allowed himself to be excited, and he fell asleep with thoughts of California in his dreams. Maybe they could have a better life after all. Maybe his father would turn things around. He wished his mom were there.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm thrilled you guys are joining us today. Welcome to the week-long celebration of the new season. I'm happy you guys are enjoying all the amazing authors. If you're new to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. You don't want to miss a single episode. Our regular times will be Monday night, so you always get a new author with an amazing new story, so make sure to do it. Hello, Mrs. TD. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. Congratulations on the book. I need to know, Western, what made you decide to write in this genre?
When I was growing up, my two favorite authors were Agatha Christie and Louis L'Amour. First book I ever bought for myself at a book fair at school was How the West Was Won by Louis L'Amour. I still have the book. It's part of my collection now. I've collected quite a few of the other ones, so it's there. I wanted to write an homage to both of them. So my first book was a mystery thriller. It wasn't quite Agatha Christie-ish, as it's not really a cozy mystery, but it was my mystery that I wanted to write. Second, I wanted to write a Western to see if I could do it as a bit of a tribute to Louis. He was a big influence in my life.
Absolutely awesome. I need to know because we're setting this in the Wild Wild West to some extent. How much research did you have to do for this book?
There's a little bit. You needed to know some dates and things. I needed to know when the Union Pacific had actually finished the railroad and what was starting there. I wanted to research Sacramento a little bit. You get into the city itself and try and figure out what's there and what's not. As it turns out, I might have written it a little smaller than it was. So my publisher had me fix a few things to get it a little bigger. So we've modified some stuff there. But yeah, there was just some research into that. A few other things in the book. You want to research ranching and how that actually works and what was happening at the time. I'm using names of people that actually existed at some point. Wyatt Earp and the James Gang are in there. They're not actual characters in the book, but their names are mentioned. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't mentioning Jesse James as a vicious outlaw when he was only a toddler. So got to make sure you have the right people in there when you need them.
Those are some really good points because you want to make sure, since it is still historical fiction to some extent, you still want to make sure that the history part is correct. People are going to look at that part. Can you tell us a little bit about the story? What can we expect in this book?
What you can expect in this book is a lot of family drama. All your Western tropes are there. You've got your bright, shiny good guy, you've got your big, evil bad guy, you've got gunfights, you've got cows, you've got brawls. It's all in there, but it's all based on family drama. It's the two brothers, Bolton and Brick. They're on their way to California, as we heard. Along the way, they end up by themselves. They end up befriending an old gunslinger. His name is Jim, and Jim takes them under his wing and gets them to Sacramento and kind of takes responsibility for them to try and help them get to where they want to go and grow up. Once they get there, you have Bolt. He tries to live an honest life. He wants to do the best he can for him and his brother. Brick, he's the younger one. He gets a little seduced by the easy money of the outlaw life and decides he's going to go outlaw for a little while. Colt tries to figure out how to get Brick back in the fold and make him part of the family again. And Brick decides whether or not he wants to. And then we have our cataclysmic event that either is going to bring them together or it's not.
I'm so excited you pointed out the fact that you are covering some of those main tropes that make Westerns so exciting. So, for all of our Western fans, this is the book you guys need to pick up. I like the combination of the brothers, by the way. My heart just felt bad for Colt. I was like, you are way too cynical for being so young. But he sings so much at that age already. It was like, oof, I just felt bad for him. Did you meant to make this poor boy suffer this much?
You know what? He suffered a little bit in the beginning there, but it really shaped him. When I started writing the story, I thought Colt was going to end up becoming a lawman. And turns out he had different ideas in mind. He becomes a rancher instead, which is a little ironic considering the life he led with his dad. And then farming and ranching are a little different, but they're kind of the same, right? They're both at the mercy of nature when it comes to the business. Either you got to depend on the weather and you got to depend on whether or not your cows are going to get sick and what's going to happen. So he picks the hard life, but he picks the honest life. He has a big responsibility that he takes very seriously.
Ah, my heart went out for that boy. I was like, oh my God, a child, really? And now you tell me his dad died too? I was like, God, TD, you should be mean to this poor kids.
Yes, it's a rough life to get there, but once he gets there, he starts to figure it out. As I said, Jim the gunslinger, Jim helps him out quite a bit. The overall theme of the book is mainly it's all about family, both what you've been given and what you choose as who your family's going to be. So
I'm excited you have this overall arching that themes that come into play. I need to know a little bit about your first book because you kind of threw it out there. So tell us a little bit about that because it's very different than what you have going on in this Western. Tell us.
completely different. So the first book is titled Amazing Grace. It's a mystery thriller. It's along the same vein as the movie Seven. So if you've seen the movie Seven and you understand what's happening in that one, it's in the same vein, but instead of using the seven sins as their modus operandi or their playbook, the serial killer takes the words from the hymn Amazing Grace and uses those words as their way to eliminate their victims. So it's all about the detective trying to catch them.
This is definitely completely different and it's very exciting. I like the fact that you have these stories that can play off so well within those genres. So, congratulations. What are you working on now?
Currently, I am working on another mystery thriller. So I'm going back to the thriller genre. It's another serial killer detective story, but it's set a little bit in Hollywood. It's got a stuntman who plays one of the main characters in there, and as well as your detective. Two chapters in so far, so I'm not sure where we're going just yet. I unfortunately am a real pantser. I'm not really a plotter at all. I start with an idea and I kind of get a rough outline in my head as to where I want it to end up, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where it's going to end up by the time I'm done writing.
Do you have a favorite genre that you write in?
I don't really have a favorite. I've only written in the two so far. I'm not going to lie, writing the Western was a little more fun. I think that probably has more to do with the material than it does anything else. It's a little easier to write the Western when, you're not trying to dig into gruesome deaths or how it's going to happen or how this guy's going to get killed off next. So it was a little more fun to write it, but I enjoy both. They were the big ones that I read. When I grew up in the 80s, Sidney Sheldon was all over the TV. Everything he'd ever written was put out in miniseries. You only had two channels at the time, so that's what you watched. You watched the Sidney Sheldon mystery series. So I was watching mysteries. I was reading books called 2 minute mysteries, where it's a page and a half, and on the bottom of the second page is the answer, so you can see exactly how it got solved and what happened. So those are the books I read forever. And then, like I said, I've got a huge Layla Moore collection. I've been reading those. So those are my two favorites. Every now and then I think I want to branch into something else, and I have a few ideas turning around. I've got a brainstorm basket in my office that I throw notes in there every now and then as to what the next idea might be. When I'm running low, I go digging in to see what's next.
Oh, that's such a fun way of looking at it. I never thought about it just putting it all into a basket and just grabbing one and going crazy with it. So that's pretty fun.
It has its moments.
That's just
Mhm.
cool. As the pantser, what is the hardest part for you in the writing process?
The hardest part is getting the details down and making sure that you know what's going on. As I said, when I was writing the book, Holt's life changed a lot. When I was writing the book, like I said, I had him set out as a lawman. He was going to be the good guy, and it turns out that's not what he wanted to be. He said, "No, I'm going to go this way." So you go from there. So the hardest part when you don't have a set plot, I think the hardest part is trying to figure out how you get from one situation to the next in a cohesive manner. Right. This is what could happen next. And now, how do I get there? How do I make this decision be true to what Colt would actually do? Is this a decision that he makes that is actually something he would do?
How long does it usually take to put your books together and write them and get them to your first draft?
Well, based on the second book, it takes the whole process for the second book took about a
Okay.
year and 2 months or something like that. It's for the second book. The first book, little different. The first book took 20 years, but you start it way back when you're younger, and then life happens. You're looking for jobs, you've got a family, you're raising kids, and things move from there. And you put it away for a while and you forget about it. Then you bring it back out and you try again. You write a little more and then you put it back away and you go there from there again. I finally took a job that made me angry enough with the job that I said, enough of this. I'm going to try and finish this book and see what happens. So then I sat down and I finished the book and we went from there. But from actually starting to finish it, seriously get down to it and get it done, it was about 8 months for that one.
That's a not bad at all. That's a really good writing process and kind of schedule to maintain without driving yourself insane. So I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
So tell me, dear, what advice would you give an up and coming author who's deciding, I want to start writing? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to make sure you write. If you're going to do it, don't put it off. I myself, I completely understand. You're the podcast you had with Mark Watson, where he called himself an anti-author, totally spoke to me exactly the same way. I write when I feel like I'm writing. I don't write every day. When I feel like I want to write, that's when I sit down and I write and I try and pour out what I can when I'm doing the writing. I agree with him. It's hard to write at home. So I have some issues. I have to lock myself in my office sometimes and try and get it down when it's time to get it down. But I'm a terrible procrastinator and I regret terribly that I lost those 20 years. So try not to do that. Just sit down and write. If you decide that's what you want to do, sit down and do it.
That is an awesome advice for everybody. And find your own flow. And it's okay, whatever that might be for you. So I'm very excited. So tell me, dear, Where can our listeners find you? Where can they learn more about you, the books, and all the fun stuff you have coming up?
I can be found at my website. My website is tdzummack.com. It's pretty easy to do. It's just remember the two M's in Zummack. The two M's kind of confuse people, but tdzummack.com is where it is. I can also be found on Facebook and Instagram. TD Zummack on both of them should be easy to find. I'm also on Twitter, or X, I guess it's called now. I'm there as well. So you can find me on all of those. But if you really want to get in touch, the website's probably the best. Get on there, send an email, and we can go from there.
Do you have a newsletter that our listeners can join?
They can subscribe and get on the email list. I don't email a whole lot. I try not to flood people's email boxes. You know, my mom's on that list, and if I flooded her email box with unnecessary stuff, she wouldn't be my mom anymore. I try and keep it nice and clean. I don't email a whole lot, but when there's important stuff, I'll email you. Yes.
Good to know. So, listeners, make sure to subscribe, make sure to check out the website and check out the books. So, dear, before you leave us, are you ready for the lightning round?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
Easy peasy. Let's do this. Pepsi or Coke?
Oh, Pepsi. Diet Pepsi, actually.
Oh, sound good. Pirate or knight?
Pirate.
Nice.
Much more fun.
Absolutely. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, Star Wars, easily.
I was looking behind you. There is a poster, obviously, of Star Wars. I was like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
how did this question end up here today? Okay. Mystery or fantasy? It should be interesting.
Mystery. Fantasy is my wife. She's all about that.
Really? So here's a little different. Let's see how you do. What character can be real life or can be animated best fits your personality?
Ooh, this character fits my personality. I don't know. It's hard to say. I think maybe my detective in Amazing Grace. I think Brock Manor might be the guy that best describes my personality.
Do you want to give us a hint of what it is?
He's a little hard nosed. He's a little stubborn. He when he sets his mind to it, he wants to get down and get it done and go from there. He has a hard time deciding how to dedicate his life to his family and to his job at the same time. So it makes things a little more difficult.
I like. Congratulations on the book. Good luck on the next one coming out. We want to hear about it. To our listeners, go ahead and check out the amazing Mr. TD. Check out the website and the books. And thank you so much for joining us. And remember, we're still celebrating back to the new season. So we'll be back again tomorrow with another amazing author. So guys, bye.